alternative that interested me, that I thought was, well, these guys might have the answer. And it wasn't necessarily the answer that I was looking, that someone was going to tell me. It was more a way of life that I felt had more meaning. As an adult, I'm still a big kid that has loads of insecurities, that I've put so many layers of things to protect myself. Ultimately, we're part of a much greater system that's fully independent. Like, for us to sit in this room here literally took every single thing on this planet for us to be sitting here in this exact moment. Someone had to make this chair, someone had to make the screws, someone had to bring them all together.
Welcome to PnP, the Partners in Positivity podcast, where
Aisling Burnett
and myself, Sarah Harty, warriors of EBP, SBP, DHBs, that's emotionally bulletproof, spiritually bulletproof, divine human beings, aim to wake up and shake up the nation through positivity, humour and shared wisdom.
Before we get stuck into another awesome episode, we just want to let you know that we have a donation page if you wish to support the podcast and help us to continue providing more amazing episodes for you. If you want to Google Partners in Positivity, you'll find our Buzzsprout site, and on there you can find a support button. You can click on that and support to your heart's content, whether it's a one-time donation or a monthly subscription. We really appreciate all the donations that we get. Thanks so much. Enjoy the episode.
Today on the international stage of our PnP podcast, we are joined by the dynamic duo, Stephen and David Flynn, aka the Happy Pear. Over 14 years ago, they literally set up shop selling vegetables in Greystones, County Wicklow, after a period of time travelling the world connecting to what matters most to them. The Happy Pear has now grown into a health and happiness movement, online and offline. These gracious guys are authors of 4 books, YouTubers with over 30 million views, and are running 6 online health courses. Alongside this, they have a physical presence of many retail outlets, and in true essence of who they are, a stone's throw away from their flagship store in Greystones, they've built a sunrise swim community where they publicly invite people to join them for connection and coffee after braving a quick dip in Mother Ocean. Without taking any more limelight away from hearing the authentic voices of our guests, Partners in Positivity, please help me welcome the Happy Pear. Guys, we're so happy to be here with you today. Guys, first of all, we really want to know this. We've been discussing it in the car. Where did the name the Happy Pear come from?
Well, we're identical twins, so we've always been a pair. We started with a vegetable shop. We started selling fruit, so it was like a pair of twins and selling pears. And we've always kind of been pretty happy, so it was kind of fun. And people had come along to the shop for years, and they'd go, "I know why you called it the Happy Pear, because you're twins," and they think they've cracked some mystical code, but it's always been a fun play on words, really.
Okay, so we were spot on as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And we've been reading up on you, listening to interviews, hearing about your story. What really intrigues us the most is we heard of you leaving Ireland at 21 to travel the world, find yourself, and we heard one of you say, "I'm not coming home until I'm happy." Can you talk to us about your trip, how long you went for, and how you went about finding that joy inside of you?
Brilliant question.
I think it came out a result of social conditioning growing up. You're kind of sold, different ideals from different people. You might see someone and go, "Oh wow, they look really successful and happy. I want to be like them. They have a big car. Oh my God, look at that. That looks good. They have a big house," or whatever ideals we were attaching ourselves to. And I did a degree in business and very much bought into these Western ideals that money makes you happy, and the more money you have, the more successful you are, and then the more you're going to be happy. And whatever way, finishing college, don't know, I felt like there was more to life than this. This all felt a bit superficial, so I wanted to go away on a journey. Not that I had achieved anything, I got my way through college, but I wanted to go and explore just an alternative to the conditioning that I'd been sold, and just try to actually at least make it a conscious conditioning. If I'm going to kind of aspire to these goals, at least make them goals that I choose as opposed to ones that were subconsciously, bestowed upon me. So I went away on this journey, and although physically, we went away separate because being identical twins, you tend to live in each other's pockets. So we went away separately to kind of learn what it was like to be as an individual, to expose yourself and actually be vulnerable and to put yourself in a position to go, who do I want to like sell myself as now? You know, I've always been this rugby playing kind of jock kind of guy. I wonder, maybe I'll be a hippie and see am I a happy hippie, or maybe I'll like be an eco warrior, maybe I'll just be a crusty lad that lives on the side of the road, and you know, let's just play with society, but no one knows me, so I can be whoever I want. And this is pre-social media, so it's like literally there was freedom, no one knew who the hell you were. So I kind of explored as many different aspects of life that interested me, from a snowboard instructor to tree planting with a bunch of Christians up in northern Canada, where we used to get a helicopter to work, to hitchhiking around America, sleeping on the side of the roads, to Burning Man 20 years ago, to rainbow gatherings, to anything that was weird and wonderful, to spiritual communities, to polyamorous communities, anything that was alternative that interested me, that I thought was, well, these guys might have the answer. And it wasn't necessarily the answer that I was looking, that someone was going to tell me. It was more a way of life that I felt had more meaning. And through that process, I found out my values had changed significantly, from believing that money made you happy and that, you know, this type of Western ideal of fame and power will make you happy, to where it was like, no, I want to be much more into health, happiness, community, and live a life that I feel is quite virtuous and more connected.
That's amazing, and I love that you use that phrase conscious conditioning, and you really, it's like you absolutely chose that for yourself. You had a choice over, you weren't shown to be a certain way or do a certain thing. You went out there to figure it out yourself and consciously choose that then. I just love that you use that phrase. I think right now it's easier retrospectively to be able to put words on it. In the moment I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was just literally following my nose, go, that's some cool tree plant in Northern Canada. Right, I'd love to go. You know, it wasn't like, oh, I wonder did they have the answer. It was more like I was following my nose, and looking back on it now, it's much more easier to make sense of it. But at the time, I was just literally following my intuition, if you will. Following intuition, brilliant. And then how, on your return home, knowing that you were going back into the same environment, in the same people who you left, and they seen you as the jock going into business, had a different mindset, and you came back a totally different version of you. How did you not shrink back into old ways of being? How did you maintain that new way that you were?
Well, I think the big thing was that there's two of us. So Steve had the idea one day, well, why don't we start a vegetable shop? Like you wanted to start a food revolution, that was your words. And we said we'd start with a vegetable shop. And so we came home, we'd been away for a couple of years, and we left as jocks that were, you know, we were, you know, we had big thick necks from playing rugby, and we used to do modelling, and we loved going getting drunk with the lads and trying to chase girls, and that was our identity. And then we came back as these lads with long hair that wore loads of rings, and with beards, and we wore weird clothes, like we really did. You used to paint your fingernails, and we were starting a vegetable shop, and we had a little van, and people thought we were weirdos. Like, people really did think we were weird, but the main reason we knew that if we
had each other.
We had each other, which was great. So there was two of us already, and I guess we were having a great time. And when you're having fun, people are attracted to you. So we were having fun, and it wasn't the people that already had preconceived ideas about us. So it was more people outside of our normal community were attracted in by this. So we were having fun, and there was purpose, there was meaning, there was bigger ideals, and it ended up being, you know, lots of Spanish people we started hanging out with, and German people, and all sorts of people, you know. And I think part of the reason why we wore such alternative clothes was like, treat me different. I don't want to be treated the same. And then also, like they say, the biggest factor for sustaining any lifestyle change is community. That if you can build a community around your new lifestyle, it's much more easier to sustain it. So we realised that we'd come back, these hippies that were into sea swimming, eating vegetables, and we didn't drink alcohol. So it was quite a change from where we'd come. So it was like, we need to new mates, because if we go back to our old mates, we're screwed. We're going to be back booze, and we're going to be back talking shite. Not that we don't talk shite, excuse my language, but anymore. That we needed to get a new group of friends who had similar ideals and values, that it was going to be easy to make, you know, they were going to support us to make sustain these positive lifestyle factors.
So you definitely need that supportive environment in making any big changes or shifts in your life.
I think it's probably easier now, like, well, maybe it is or isn't, I don't know, but now with social media and with health being more to the forefront, and, you know, compared to 20 years ago, certainly it was much more, you were much more extreme, you were treated like some strange religious creature, you know, in a sense, whereas now I think possibly if you're looking for people that are interested in the same whatever your kind of your needs are, whether you're interested in starting a yoga group or a meditation group or a mindfulness group or a breatharian group or a vegan group or whatever the hell it is, with social media or with the internet, you can tend to connect with people easier and form more tribes, even though, you know, there's challenges, of course, at any stage.
I was actually going to ask is, what is your views on breatharianism?
Breatharianism. I remember meeting someone who was, back when I was away travelling, like Steve went off and did his thing, and I was living in Costa Rica for a bit, and I met this guy. I was at this international rainbow gathering, which was a month up in the woods in Costa Rica, and everyone was like these utopian ideals where there was no money and everyone called one another brother and sister, and they all traded skills, and lots of people walked around naked, and it was like this attempted utopia kind of thing, but it didn't quite feel true or whatever. But on the back of this, I met this guy who was an ex-professional rock climber, free climber, and he was the first guy to free climb Angel Falls in Venezuela, which was one of the highest things, and he had fallen and broken his back and then healed himself through fasting and cleansing. And he changed his name to Tanasi Rama, and he had these the brightest blue eyes. They were like sapphire, they were like incredible eyes. And he was a yogi dude that we used to do a lot of pranayama with him, and he was trained to be a breatharian. He'd done like weeks of no food, and then weeks of no food and water, and weeks of all sorts of different things that he was trying to push his boundaries. But I think he kind of probably pushed himself a bit too far, you know. I'd be interested in where he was there.
I think there's great capacity in the human consciousness. I don't know, you know, I can't say I met one yesterday, it was amazing. But I think there's infinite possibility with the human consciousness, awareness, or even beyond the human consciousness. And I think I tend to believe in magic, so yeah, that sounds great.
But certainly we played around with fasting quite a bit. Like I remember doing a week-long water fast, and you've done fast as well. And I guess certainly was very interested back at those times of how far you could push the boundary, and would you become more, as Stephen used the word, more conscious or more self-aware, or become a better human, a version of yourself through pushing yourself to these extremes. But I think often you can be, you know, the middle ground might be easier, the kinder path, because those are tough, more aesthetic type paths to go on.
I've actually met an Irish girl who's been breatharian for 4 years. I went to one of her talks. She is kind of fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then in terms of, like you're saying, the capability of human consciousness, let's say even just in simplistic form, you had a thought, an idea of having this veg shop, and look how much it's grown over the last 14 years, but going from that thought and then creating it and make it into reality. Like a lot of people have dreams, have thoughts, have ideas, they're talking them out but they're not taking the action. What would your advice would be for someone that has some sort of dream or seed that they want to see blossom?
I think a dream is by its very nature is kind of in its ephemeral state, and someone has to ground it, and the only way you can ground it is by bringing it to the physical form, and the only way you can bring it by the physical form is showing up and grafting.
And start doing it and going one step at a time. Like it really is, and it's a journey, and you think it's about the destination, but it's not. It's about you constantly unfolding and growing and becoming a better version of yourself on this way towards this destination you think will be the end goal, but it never is. It's just a continuum, really, and that's life, really, I think.
Yeah.
So, how did you become so successful, and did it happen quickly, or was there a point where it catapulted?
Well, I would go back and say that success, I would go back up and go, what is success? Because through society's traditional values nowadays, success is perceived as, you know, notoriety, or people know your name, or you've got a business, or you have money, or you've got followers on social media, those different things. And those are the typical statuses of which we measure success. But I think recently we've become much more, our own definitions of success is more intrinsic in that how much ease do I have in my life, how much joy do I have in my life, and how much a sense of a self, how authentic am I in myself. And I think those are where we're trying to redefine success for ourselves, while also being aware that we're so conditioned to want more things and want to own a house and want more money, that there is all these conditions in us, and there's a kind of constant battle between the intrinsic and the extrinsic.
Yeah.
That's a very ephemeral answer now there, so.
I love it.
Defo. That question was actually...
Defo! I love it.
That was, I kind of made it my own, but Betty Mulvey was asking me to ask you that this morning, the one who you just signed the book for.
Superman
Yeah.
Betty, Super Bets.
Yeah, so I heard you say we're all just insecure humans who want love and acceptance. When did you first become aware of this, and can you share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Well, I think it's probably been since having kids, you become more aware of it. You become aware that as an adult, I'm still a big kid that has loads of insecurities, that I've put so many layers of things to protect myself. But the real glory, the real good stuff is that inner kid. And we've all covered these vulnerabilities, these sensitivities and these things, but through having kids, you get to see this bright light in its purest form. You know, you get to see your kids and they're vulnerable. They're, I need you, I love you, I'm scared, I need these things. And as adults, we've just put so many layers over them to protect ourselves, but we protected so much of the goodness, our glory, our joy, our
vulnerability. I think often modern day society can evangelize positivity, but like with night there's day, and it's only with day do we know night. There has to be that duality of life, and I think the nature of positivity is that there's negativity, and that's okay. They're both there, and neither is right or wrong. I think they're both different spectrums of night and day.
But then is it not just the words, the label that decides if something's positive or negative? Like it's just purely some association. So I don't know if there is positivity or negativity, there just is, and everyone puts labels on things.
It's like a spectrum, like they're opposite ends of the same spectrum maybe, or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's something that's came up for us recently as well. We started a challenge back in May, the Wim Hof challenge, the cold water therapy, and we're having cold showers along with hot for about 3 months now. This is the start of our process of getting more into the sea and following your footsteps and getting in and out of the cold water, like the Atlantic coast in Galway. But in that, we're seeing, like there's night and day, there's hot, there's cold, and it's a balance of all that. And how do you go about finding the right balance in terms of, let's say, positive and negative emotions for yourselves?
I think it's a tough one, especially nowadays with just mental health being so much coming to the fore. Like, I can just speak from my own experience. My wife is a clinical psychologist. Mm-hmm. When I first met her, she kind of would ask me, tell me about your emotions. Like, how many emotions? Like, what emotions do you feel? And I was like, what's an emotion? Like, I went to an all-boys school. I had nothing but brothers. I played a lot of rugby. I really didn't get much emotional education, if you would. And I was kind of like, I'm lucky I had the positive ones. Yeah, I didn't get any of the negative ones. Yeah, I'm happy. I get tired sometimes I get angry, and I'm horny and hungry. And that was about the extent of my awareness. And she was like, oh my God. And through chatting to her more, she kind of made me aware that all emotions are really, really important, and if you don't express them, they will express you in different ways that you may not want to. So I guess I've been working hard, or trying to be more aware of expressing more vulnerability, and actually being more, trying to first understand them myself and being able to label them. I think I'm feeling unsure. It's unsure emotion, this type of thing. It's actual having to re-educate myself, because unfortunately I learned what a glaciated valley is, but I couldn't tell you what this feeling I have inside me right now. So I think it's important, at least for me, to learn to educate my emotions and actually to talk from a point of my own emotions as opposed to judgment, because often in an intimate relationship it's easy to kind of go, you're late, why are you late, you don't love me, as opposed to going, I feel really sad that you were late, I feel like,
take responsibility.
Talking from a point of vulnerability. And I think in society, vulnerability enables us to connect with each other more. I think vulnerability is more from the heart, whereas I think logic and is more from the head. And I think heart can often bring closer connections.
Yeah, and here at PnP, on this mission we are at in Partners in Positivity to help people be more emotionally bulletproof. We're trying and testing out different things ourselves. We've done like heart mat coaching and lots of different things, but even myself over this summer I nearly had for the first time this soul awakening where I actually connected to all my angry, negative emotions. And we had 1 week in the summer where I think I let out all my anger emotions from my whole life. I'm 31 now, but it was after a bit of a heartbreak. But what I recognised then was I was living, I think, on pure positive cylinders, and that was it. And I never let any of my negativity out. And after that, I realised, oh my God, what was I doing all this time? I really wasn't connecting fully to my whole range of emotions, and I nearly felt more human since that happening. And then we decided actually to say at Partners of Positivity, okay, we're going to aim to focus on being 80% positive and 20% we're going to allow negativity, we're going to give out what we need to give out. And that was definitely true for me, because I had a conversation with one of my friends from college 10 years ago, and I was telling her about this awakening, you could say, and she was like, oh my God, Sarah, in college you were so positive, I thought you were on drugs. Like, you kept going around telling everyone, just be positive, not pessimistic. And it was kind of toxic in a way that I didn't allow people to have their emotions, allow them to have their anger and all of that. But what would you say about focusing on 20% positive or 80% positive and 20% negative?
I think I'd probably go less into. I think sometimes numbers in a formula can make people think they've got to follow some kind of dogma or something. Yeah. That in a sense I would find in myself, I would kind of go, well, it's much better. Everyone's got their own different operating system, and I think to kind of let it unfold to what makes most sense to you. That underneath the positivity, there's probably, I think there's positivity, but if you can have contentment and ease and those kind of things, I think they can supersede positivity, because sometimes positivity can just mask insecurities underneath it. I think it can. That I think ultimately it's back down to where you can actually have that sense of ease and that sense of contentment, which no matter what's going on around you, it doesn't affect you, make you feel positive or negative, because that, I think it's like the depth of the ocean versus the surface of the ocean. The surface of the ocean is wavy, it's calm, it's all those various things, but if within each one of us there's that depth of that spirit, that connection to whatever, consciousness, to life, to God, whatever kind of word you want to use for it. But that connection to something much bigger than ourselves, which I think
where you're less affected by the vicissitudes of life. What do you call that? Or the ups and downs of life, like as in
fluctuation.
The turbulence. Yeah. So positivity, negativity doesn't matter. You're at this deeper place where you're just, it's wonderful.
So I think
wonderful.
That interest.
And it's not even positive. It's just like,
it's interesting, it's curious, like the way a kid, it's just, there's a cute, I think
you hate
that I'm more interested in.
Why do you hate me? You're very present with it all and you're not reacting, and I think that's success to me.
Yeah.
That's true success.
And presence is key, actually. I started doing mindfulness meditation back in 2014, and when my mother gave me a book, Finding Peace in a Frantic World, and ever since there I'm more in tune with meditating, connected to my body and looking for that contentment, peace, presence on a day-to-day basis, and in controlling your mind as well. But I have to ask you, you're called the Happy Pear, you focus on fueling the body 3 or 4 times a day, getting the food right, getting nature and movement in. What is self-talk like for you guys? How do you talk to yourselves when nobody else is around?
Yeah, great question. At the moment I'm reading a very interesting book. It's called The Untethered Soul, and a friend had been talking about it to me for quite a while. And I haven't read a spiritual type book in a while, and it's a fun reminder, because it's all talking about the voice in your head, that really it's just a babbling lunatic most of the time, and that if because the voice in most people's head is typically repetitive, it says the same type of things, and it can be, if you listen to it, like if it was verbalized, you would think that each of us is a lunatic, quite probably, because it doesn't make sense, it's not rational, it's mostly just insecure babble. And if you can, the book is very interesting, and it reminds me that if you can take a step back and just observe all this racket going on in your head, and even label it, like there's crazy Dave in my head, oh, this is a crazy Dave, you can have your crazy Dave, and just sit back and actually observe it, it can be quite interesting, and there's that little layer of distance away from this crazy lunatic voice, and that calm presence, and I think self-talk is one thing, but I think behind self-talk, there's a much deeper, more authentic version of ourselves.
And even self-talk in its very, the label self-talk, the talk in my head is very different when I'm around different people. If I'm around someone that's very calm, the self-talk, if it is originally coming from self, it's very much affected by the environment which I'm in. If I'm in a very calm, loving environment, self-talk is very different if I'm in a very angry, very violent, very traumatic environment. It's very different self-talk. So I question if it's actually coming necessarily from the self, the individual. We're affected of many things.
That's big. I love it. Deepak Chopra in the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success talks about the law of giving. I think you've certainly mastered that. How many grams of free porridge oats would you say you've given away to date?
Tons, lots. No one can ever measure it, so millions. No idea.
Lots. I think that kind of came out of back many years ago when we started the cafe. We used to do lunch and dinner, And we never really did breakfast because Greystones was always kind of a commuter town. We figured, sure, everyone's had their breakfast. Like, why would you not have breakfast at home? You know, this type of idea. And then Dave was kind of saying, well, like, we cook porridge here every day. Like, why don't we just cook a little extra and sell it? I was like, okay, cool. And Sally was the manager. She said, well, why don't we do it for a week and like see if we make any money? And I was like, Sally, good thinking. And then I was like, well, what if we just try for 1 week and we just like give it away for free, just to see if people take it. If they won't take it for free, they definitely won't pay for it. So she said, okay, cool, great. We gave it away for free, and there was something lovely about it. People go, could I have a bowl of porridge? And you go, great. You go, how much is it? You go, it's free. Yeah. And they go, what do you mean it's free? Like, what are you looking for? You know, there was a bit of suspicion, but then after a while, it kind of, there was something lovely about it, and it was very inviting and very kind of communal, if you will. So we decided at the end of the week, it was like, right, what are we charging for porridge? €3.50, €3. It seems like they wanted, like, you know, we shifted 200 bowls of porridge last week. And I was kind of like, can we do it for another week? Like, it just feels really nice. It feels like the right thing to do. And that week has been about, I don't know, 14 years now.
Oh my God, since 14 years ago you've been doing that?
Yeah.
That's amazing. And actually yesterday I went and I got my mother's wheel fixed, and there was only something small wrong with the wheel. It was a puncture, and I said to the guy, okay, how much do I owe you? He said, that's free. And I was like, are you for real? This is the best service I've had all day. And I actually have a second car at home, my own car that had a flat tire, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is after happening. I'll be back with a second car to you now in half an hour. But yeah, you do remember that, and I think, like you said about being conditioned in a world where people, I think the perceived notion is people are out to get you, or people are looking to make money, and then the odd time when you come across someone like yourselves that are doing something different and actually are given like a handout instead of taking, you know, it's really unique, and people remember that as well, the kindness and generosity. You know?
Yeah, I think it creates more, when you're asking about success, like I think that kind of thing, the more of those things that you do, which seem like selfless, but they're ultimately the most selfish things, because it feels so good, like it comes back to you tenfold, like it really does. Those simple things of, you see someone struggling and you go help them a little bit, and you're kind of going, I'm too busy, I've got way too much stuff to do, and then you go do it, and you just feel like you're, you know, whatever kicks off in your human body, your body's hardwired for it, that it just releases all these endorphins and serotonin. You feel like, you know, it just feels really good.
Yeah. And then we mentioned to you, I think, earlier on today, but we have a rule at Partners in Positivity, and that is, if it's not fun, we're not doing it. And we live by that, because we started this with intention to inspire the world, but actually to do it through passion, you know, rather than through pressure maybe. But for you guys on a day-to-day basis, do you have any simple rules, simple principles just amongst each other that you remind yourselves of, or that you definitely live by, there's no question on it?
Yeah, well, I guess we've eaten a vegan diet for nearly 20 years, so I guess that's probably a rule, but it's not necessarily a rule, it's just how we live our lives. We tend to and these are more how we live our lives rather than rules which we beat ourselves up over. We move quite a lot just because we've always moved and it makes us feel good, and it's more that if we don't do it we feel crap. So it's more that's how it's implemented. It's not like a rule, it's a way that we live.
So it might be, do you want to do yoga, or do you want to do handstands, or do you want to go for a run, or do you want to go stretch, or do you want to go do press-ups, or do you want to go for a walk, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that there's a restlessness or a need. I think we forget we're mammals. We get caught up with this idea of living our best life and, you know, being super successful, but we forget we're mammals, and we're like dogs that, you know, when you don't walk your dog feels a bit sad and down, and we're ultimately mammals too, and we need to walk ourselves, and if we don't walk ourselves we feel crap too. So it's we found that movement, and even if you look at the blue zones, which are the 5 areas on the planet where there's the most amount of centenarians, typically their life is set up to move every 20 minutes. So I think movement is very important for us feeling physically healthy and emotionally well.
Yeah. But I think the less rules you can have that are rigid, you know, like that's my own experience now being 40, that the less rules and the more principles.
More wise, do?
No, but I've lived more than 20. Like, you know, I think my rule, like I might have had more harder rules when I was younger, but now they're very much fluid, underpinning things of how I live. More fluid principles, or, you know, that type of thing, rather than a black and white rule.
Or jazz framework.
So to riff off.
Yeah.
Oh guys, I feel like we've met our match here, the PnPs and the Happy Pears, because I feel like I spent maybe 10 years in office jobs, sitting down, and I was so restless, and I just wanted to cry every second day. And I thought, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. I have to be in an office job, 9 to 5. And I remember looking out at trees, thinking I would rather be climbing that tree than sitting at this desk. I felt like in prison, nearly sitting at the desk.
Climbing the tree,
and I'd have to, everyone in the offices I was in, I'd have the windows open, I'd be getting up and down, and I just couldn't sit still. So I realised that at 30, a bit slow to realise it maybe, but now I'm going in a different route where I'm doing more things that I have the availability to move more, I suppose. And it's definitely making me happier, so I'm with you on that.
I just want to talk about the pandemic, and have you guys had any losses in the pandemic, and how did you deal with that, and have you got any advice for people that might be going through tough times?
Yeah, I think we've been very fortunate in terms of just the family support that we have, and everyone has their challenges, so I don't mean in any way if this comes across in any way. One of our cafes we had to close in Clondalkin, and one thing that's really hard as someone responsible for a business, we had to make a number of people redundant, and that always feels upsetting, sad. You gotta, at least for personally, I had to make peace with some sense of failure. It's like I failed these people to keep their job going. But the other aspect is quite liberating. That aspect of the business wasn't, financially stable. It was losing money. Sometimes you got to cut off a bit of a branch or prune a bit of a branch for the rest of the tree to blossom. So there was that aspect of things. So that bit was an issue of making peace with. Other aspects that this coronavirus has done is that it's kind of helped us. Can I tell one other little story?
Go on.
I was saying it to Raj on the way to the beach. Raj was talking about luck, and I was just saying I always liked this Chinese parable, and I'm going to say it totally wrong. And for anyone listening and who knows the real one, I'm paraphrasing it, but I'm trying to get the basic concept of it. There was this Chinese man, and he was a farmer, and his son was there, and a group of wild horses. What do you call a lot of horses? A group of pack of them, a flock of horses, a herd, whatever you call it anyway. A pride of horses went by. A shoal of horses swam by. Anyway, 4 horses ran by, and they went past, and the boy didn't manage to catch him, so the neighbour just went, bad luck, you missed him. And the son went off looking for the horses, and he came back the next day with the 4 horses. He managed to catch them and bring them up, and they went, wow, good luck. And the old man went, good luck, bad luck. And the neighbour didn't know what he meant by that. And the next day, the son fell off the horse and broke his leg, and the neighbour went, bad luck. And the farmer went, good luck, bad luck. And then the day after, there was a war broke out in China, and they were enlisting anyone who was young to come fight in the war. And because the son broke his foot, he didn't have to fight in the war. So the neighbour went, good luck, and the man went, good luck, bad luck. And it was just, I think it was a great reminder for me in that sense of good luck, bad luck. I don't know, is it not? I think we have to just trust in life, that life is kind of unfolding as it's meant to be, and we're just part of a fully interdependent web, and we're just... Often we can get caught in, me personally, in the very egoicness of my own life, pursuing whatever it is for my business, for my family, for whatever it is. But ultimately we're part of a much greater system that's fully independent. Like for us to sit in this room here literally took every single thing in this planet for us to be sitting here in this exact moment. Someone had to make this chair, someone had to make the screws, someone had to bring them all together, someone had to bring it outside in such a way that I'd catch it and bring it here. So it literally... Life has its own rhythm, and we're very much just a part of it, but we tend to get caught up with our own individual egoic perspective, and I think it's a nice reminder for me that we're part of a much greater system, and that's why when I swim in the sea every day, it reminds me that I'm just a drop in the ocean. And just let the ocean take me where I'm meant to be, as opposed to fighting and I want to go there and take on that big wave. And I think that's something that Corona reminded me, that we're part of a bigger system and to trust it.
Yeah.
And it mightn't be where necessarily we want to go, but maybe it's where we need to be.
Yeah, and it reminds me of, I'm a public speaking coach, but I had a conversation with one of my clients who had to deliver communications to maybe a team of people. Some may have been made redundant, otherwise it could have been pay cuts or stuff like that. But I remember him saying, okay, I have to deliver this bad news, and when I have a session with someone, I listen in to how they're speaking, their mindset around that, to tailor that as much as what they're actually saying as well. And I just said, you know, can you step into a space where it's news that you're delivering rather than it's bad news, because you're bringing that with you into that conversation. They may, like, then it's over to them, they're responsible for how they react or respond. They may see that as a, you know, like you said, freedom, you know, you're cutting off the pruning the tree or whatever. It may be actually something they wanted to be released from, or it could actually be a situation where they have the mortgage to pay, and it could be not a nice conversation to have, but to leave that over to them rather than you taking it on, that's going to be a bad outcome, you know, by how you're speaking. But like your mindset and perspective is really everything around things like that. And I love that you just seem to dip into the ocean and then continue to float downstream afterwards.
Do our best. You know, we're doing our best too.
We're products of our environment, so we're not perfect in any sense. We're flawed, evolving humans trying to do our best. Insecure humans looking to be loved.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, can you share 3 top tips from the Happy Pear on how to have a happier, healthier life?
I'm going to first take on your question, the concept of happiness. I think it's more how to find a more easy life, where happiness is you're gonna meet things in life that are gonna make you sad.
But then
whereas I think it's to find a deeper life.
That, because sometimes people might perceive ease as sitting back, eating crisps and sitting on the couch.
Yeah, no.
So I would think
more
it's
in the
probably-
natural rhythm of life.
Yeah, having meaning and having a deeper sense of flow.
Okay, so
to
let's
life.
bring it back to a point. Sorry for taking the question and running apart the question.
Well, you can
Do
go.
you listen to Abraham Hicks?
No, but I did years ago. I remember reading some of her books. But I remember there was, like, if you want to break it down into very practical things, like number 1, eat more fruit and veg, because most people don't eat enough fruit and veg. Ireland, globally, most people in the first world don't eat, 90% of people don't eat enough fruit and veg. So that would be the first one. Point number 2 would move more, because most people don't move enough. Like, you can go very practical with this, but I think the things that underpin all that, which at the moment, like, we've done all those things for years, and we're more interested in, as Stephen was saying, like, once you've got your kind of pillars in your life that help you physically, I think, your body to be well and healthy. Certainly in our situation now, we're looking for how to get more ease and more meaning and have more, be less affected by the ups and downs of life. So I think it's those type of things that, and ultimately it's a spirituality really, and that's what religion filled that hole years ago. Whereas nowadays, I think not as many people. Religion is good for some people and not for other people, and I guess part of our religion is nature and swimming in the sea and those type of things.
Yeah, I think point 3, like if you look at the blue zones, again, back to those 5 areas in the planet where there's the most amount of people who live over the age of 100. And there's 9 factors that, it was National Geographic, Dan Buettner and a bunch of scientists found out there were 9 factors that predicated why they lived long, happy lives. And, you know, many of them were eating predominantly a plant-based diet, move, sense of purpose, wine at 5. But one of them was a strong sense of purpose and a reason greater than themselves to exist. And I think that's something that can often be missing in modern day life. It's very easy to go, my purpose is to make $1 million or €1 million before X. Whereas I think the more we can have a purpose that's greater than ourselves and that will live on for more than 100 years or 200 years, in the sense of, I want to create more love in the world or whatever, something silly like that, or something like.
But that's cliched wisdom now.
Absolutely it is, but okay, well, I can just talk from my own experience right now. Beyond, I can give you 5 tips for helping happiness, I can riff on that and just go, blah, blah, blah. But I'm a bit bored of that. I do that, that's easy. But what's interesting to me is that it's so easy to get caught in the outside of life, the pursuit of a partner, a pursuit of a house, a pursuit of an adventure, a pursuit of something. But I think real wealth of life is cultivating an inner wealth, a sense of like, I remember one thing that I did many years ago. I did a Vipassana meditation course, and I had to sit there for 10 days and meditate 12 hours a day and not talk. And you know, the idea of it initially was like, what, you gotta sit there for 12 hours, what are you doing? Like, and you have to sit there and make peace with a lot of demons that were coming up. And it's amazing, the longer you sit, the more demons that come. Geez, I didn't think I had those demons. Fucking loads of them. And I don't think there's ever a point where you necessarily slay them all, but it's a sense of making peace with yourself. Like, there's all these cliches about, you know, those who know themselves are the wise, whatever, all these cliches. But I think there is huge meaning for me, and I think for anyone who's listening to this now, I think
If someone managed to listen to this stage of
of our ramblings, but it's to cultivate an internal, a deeper internal meaning with yourself that is less affected by what others think about you, less affected by how much money you have in your bank account, and more affected with greater sense of meaning, relationship, and peace with yourself.
Every so often you meet an old man or an old woman and you see them and it's like the sun shining at you. You see them and they have this ease, you can see it in their lines in their face, and there's this ease and joy and contentment. It's typically with people that are older, you rarely see it in people that are younger. Well, you do in moments where they've let go and there's this just radiance coming through. And my aspiration is to someday be one of those old shiny men that smiles the sunshine at you, and you can see there's no fight in them. They're eased. They're just at one with life, and then one day they just become the wind. Just disappear.
Wow.
Into the wind. Excuse the rambles. Like the children will hear. But you know the sentiment. I'm not articulating very well, but you can understand the sentiment.
Okay, and then for ourselves, myself and Ash, Partners in Positivity, we love taking on new challenges to explore our own inner worlds and to be more positive day to day, or more happy or more at peace. Could you give us one challenge that we could start, if it was for 21 days or 30 days? What would you recommend? One thing.
Listeners.
I'd give you two things. I'd say one, start the habit of reading a chapter of a book every day.
Okay.
So something that's more towards the inner journey rather than the outer journey. So something like even that book which I'm reading now, it's a very good one, or any kind of one that gets you more on that inward journey and less external.
Awareness by Anthony DeMello, starting point.
Beautiful one. And then the second
Awareness, a book by Anthony DeMello.
Beautiful.
Very nice, simple
Lovely
book.
book. And the second one I'd say is try to meditate for 20 minutes a day and just sit with that babble in your head and just try to sit with it until it becomes easy and calm, and cultivate that habit. I think those are the habits that will ultimately lead to more contentment, that's not dependent on money and houses and partners and sex and all those things.
Great, we're taking that on from now, officially.
Boom!
Guys, that was a blessing, a pleasure. We're so honoured to be here with you today, and really, I spoke to Ashley in the car coming up, and I watched one of your 5-minute videos on tips for health, and I could see your inner child shining through, and I love that you've grabbed onto that so strongly, and you can see that in all the work that you do, how you treat your staff here on the beach on a Sunday or every day, how you treated us last week, and we are so blessed to have met you in person now and to have this recording, and we thank you forevermore.
Beautiful. Thanks for creating the space for a very interesting conversation.
Brilliant.
That was great, Craig.
Congratulations, well done. Pat yourself on the back. You're officially now a partner in positivity with us. If this is your first episode, we're so grateful. If this is your 40th episode, we're equally as grateful for your ears, for your heart, for taking this time out for yourself and committing to your own positive mental health journey. Our intention for this podcast is for you to feel a little bit better afterwards. So we hope you take some time now to check in with yourself. How did you feel before? How do you feel now? And we've definitely done our job if you feel a little bit better, and especially if you want to come back for more next week. If you do want to support us, we actually have a Ko-fi donation page. It's ko-fi.com/partners in positivity. We really value the work that we're doing. We know there's so much positive and negative in the world, and we want to contribute to people feeling their best. So we appreciate all of the donations we've had so far and welcome any more that are on the way. Thank you in advance. Also, if you got something of value from this and you want to share with friends or family to add to this trend of positivity in the world, we would love to be tagged in any posts on social media. You know where to find us. Other than that, guys, have an incredible week ahead, and we look forward to feeding you some more nourishment for that beautiful mind, that beautiful garden of yours next week.